What happens to the future when the past is quietly rewritten? History is usually presented to us as a triumphant, unbroken line of human progress, moving steadily from the darkness of ignorance into the brilliant light of scientific certainty. But if we look closely at the margins of this grand narrative, we begin to find shadows. We find the scattered, forgotten fragments of extraordinary discoveries that simply vanished. These forgotten milestones are not merely lost opportunities or misplaced blueprints. They represent a much larger, deeply unsettling pattern of erasure, a systematic suppression that actively protects entrenched power structures by burying innovations capable of fundamentally transforming human civilization. Across different eras and continents, brilliant visionaries have stumbled upon paradigm-shifting concepts only to be met with deafening silence, confiscation, and profound persecution. We are conditioned to believe that human innovation is solely limited by the firm boundaries of scientific possibility. However, what unites these 10 suppressed breakthroughs is not that they were scientifically impossible, but that they posed an existential, economic threat to the modern world order. Revolutionary technologies have repeatedly been sidelined because they challenge the very foundations of industries built upon the careful maintenance of artificial scarcity. It is a haunting realization that some of humanity's greatest leaps forward were eliminated not because they failed, but because they worked entirely too well. As we explore these quiet echoes of history, we must ask ourselves a profound question. If the boundaries of our progress are dictated by the permission of economics rather than the limits of human imagination, what kind of world have we been denied? The stories of these visionaries invite us to look beyond the accepted narrative and consider the hidden horizon of human potential. Imagine a sound so perfectly tuned and resonant that it can shatter a crystal glass from across a room, yet leave the surrounding air completely undisturbed. In the 1930s, an inventive scientist named Dr. Royal Raymond Rife sought to apply a similarly elegant principle to the delicate ecosystem of the human body. Armed with a revolutionary optical system capable of magnifying living microorganisms over 60,000 times, he peered into a previously invisible world without killing his subjects. He discovered that he could precisely identify the unique electromagnetic signatures of cancer-causing pathogens. Rife theorized that by creating frequency generators to match these precise electromagnetic pulses, he could selectively destroy malignant cells while leaving healthy tissue entirely unharmed. It was a beautifully simple concept, bombarding devastating illness with its own perfect destructive rhythm. Clinical trials conducted at the University of Southern California in 1934 seemed to validate his life's work, reporting an astonishing 100% cure rate for terminal cancer patients within 70 days of treatment. The dawn of a compassionate, painless medical era seemed imminent. Yet this profound triumph was incredibly short-lived. Just as the director of the clinical trials prepared to announce these findings to the medical world, he passed away suddenly under deeply mysterious circumstances. Almost immediately, a systematic campaign, led by powerful figures within the American Medical Association, emerged to comprehensively discredit Rife's frequency therapy. His laboratory was broken into, irreplaceable components of his visionary microscope were destroyed, and the courageous doctors who utilized his machines were threatened with the loss of their medical licenses. The tragic reality was that Rife's inexpensive, highly effective therapy threatened the financial foundations of a billion-dollar industry built around continuous, expensive treatments. The profound promise of a cure was overshadowed by the immense profitability of prolonged care. Rife spent his final years broken and impoverished, his brilliant symphony of healing permanently silenced. How fixed are the immutable laws of physical reality, truly? In the quiet confines of his Canadian laboratory in 1979, an inventor named John Hutchison unwittingly challenged the very foundations of modern physics and chemistry. Surrounded by an eclectic, complex array of Tesla coils, high-voltage generators, and radio frequency equipment, he orchestrated a strange, intersecting symphony of electromagnetic fields. Where these invisible currents crossed, The ordinary, predictable rules of the universe seemed to simply cease functioning. Solid steel bars inexplicably warped and bent with the flexibility of soft rubber, while heavy metal objects, gracefully lifted from workbenches, floating freely in mid-air. Even more astonishing, entirely dissimilar materials, like wood and metal, fused together at a molecular level without the application of immense heat or pressure. This anomaly, later known as the Hutchison effect, was extensively documented on video and witnessed directly by bewildered military officials and intelligence officers. Investigators observed ordinary matter casually defying the fundamental conservation laws of energy, momentum, and mass. Perhaps the most deeply unsettling aspect of this discovery was its sheer ability to spontaneously alter matter at the atomic level, transforming steel partially into aluminum. Such profound power over molecular structure could have revolutionized human manufacturing, transportation, and material science. Unsurprisingly, the ability to rewrite the physical world was deemed far too disruptive to remain in civilian hands, threatening to render conventional military hardware obsolete. By 1990, Hutchison's laboratory equipment was confiscated by authorities acting on behalf of international military interests. His intricate generators were seized, and his groundbreaking research was firmly locked behind strict national security orders. The power to bend gravity and manipulate matter was hidden away, leaving us to wonder what other secrets of the natural world remain just outside our reach. Can the invisible ambient vitality of nature itself be gathered, concentrated, and harnessed for human healing? In the 1940s, a controversial psychiatrist named Wilhelm Reich proposed exactly that, stepping far beyond the boundaries of traditional medicine. Through his deep studies on the relationship between biological energy and psychological health, he came to believe that the universe was permeated by a fundamental, radiant life force he called Orgone energy. He hypothesized that living organisms naturally interact with this ambient energy, and he sought to build a physical bridge between human health and the environment. Reich designed specific geometric enclosures constructed from alternating layers of organic materials, like wool and wood chips, layered with metallic steel. These Orgone accumulators were explicitly built to capture and concentrate this environmental life force. When patients rested within these quiet chambers, medical testing revealed measurable, significant improvements in severe chronic conditions, including arthritis, chronic fatigue, and cancer. The devices even generated anomalous, unexplainable heat, strongly suggesting they were indeed concentrating a very real, measurable form of environmental energy. Reich's ambitions eventually expanded to the atmosphere itself, utilizing large-scale mechanical devices to successfully influence weather patterns and generate rainfall. But his holistic, radically untraditional approach drew the fierce ire of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, who claimed his science was fraudulent. The ensuing suppression of his life's work was astonishingly thorough and devastatingly absolute. Laboratories were aggressively raided, and federal agents literally set fire to decades of irreplaceable scientific journals, books, and personal writings. Reich was eventually imprisoned, dying behind bars shortly after, while his legacy was reduced to ash. The systematic eradication of Orgone technology ensured that his profound vision of biological healing remained an unexplored frontier. Under the heavy cover of the Florida night, a solitary man quietly moved mountains. Between 1923 and 1951, Edward Leeds Calnan single-handedly constructed the monumental Coral Castle. Working entirely alone, he carved, moved, and positioned massive blocks of coral weighing up to 30 tons each. He possessed no modern heavy machinery, utilizing only primitive tripods, hand tools, and chains that could not theoretically generate the force needed to lift such immense weight. Witnesses occasionally caught glimpses of his midnight labor, reporting the impossible sight of colossal stones floating gently through the air, settling into place with perfect precision as if devoid of all weight. The stones were balanced with such miraculous mathematical precision that massive block doors could be pushed open with the gentle touch of a single finger. Leeds Calnan steadfastly claimed he was not performing magic, Rather, he had simply rediscovered the ancient harmonic laws of magnetic currents and anti-gravity, the very same forces once used by the Egyptians to raise the pyramids. His secluded workshop housed a strange, complex array of homemade electromagnetic generators and intricate coils. Upon closer inspection, the coral blocks revealed precise cut marks and complex mechanical joints that simply could not have been achieved with primitive hand tools. Yet, upon his passing in 1951, this quiet testament to forgotten engineering was immediately disrupted. Government investigators swiftly sealed his workshop, meticulously removing and classifying his delicate equipment and research notes. Modern engineers, equipped with massive industrial cranes and large teams of workers, still struggle to replicate his solitary achievements. Leeds Kalnin left behind a magnificent heavy puzzle in stone, a silent monument proving that our understanding of gravity and magnetism remains woefully incomplete. The technological methods he used to master the weight of the Earth were deemed far too advanced to remain in public hands. What if the firm, reliable fabric of space and time is more like a woven curtain, capable of being folded and parted? In the autumn of 1943, the United States Navy attempted to manipulate that very fabric in a deeply classified operation. Rooted in Einstein's unified field theory, which suggested the intimate manipulation of gravity and electromagnetism, the initial goal was simply to render a naval destroyer, the USS Eldridge, completely invisible to enemy radar. Massive experimental electromagnetic generators were powered up in the shipyard. The outcome defied all human comprehension. Witnesses reported the massive vessel vanishing entirely in a brilliant, blinding flash of blue-green light, leaving nothing but an empty, swirling depression in the harbor's water where it had been moored. Moments later, the ship instantaneously materialized over 200 miles away in Virginia, recognized by bewildered radar operators, before it vanished once more and returned to its original physical location. But this instantaneous journey across dimensions carried a horrifying physical and psychological toll. The profound manipulation of space-time ravaged the minds and bodies of the helpless crew. Investigators later received harrowing accounts. Sailors were found tragically fused directly into the steel bulkheads of the ship, while others suffered severe temporal displacement, seemingly existing outside the normal, linear flow of time. The terrifying reality of matter teleportation had been briefly realized, but at a human cost far too great to comprehend. The incident was immediately buried beneath heavy layers of official denial and classification. Witnesses were quickly transferred and sworn to absolute secrecy under the strict threat of court-martial. The breathtaking ability to instantaneously transmit matter across vast distances was deemed an unimaginable threat to the global structure of military defense and global commerce. The delicate curtain of space was violently drawn shut once more. We are left to look out at the silent, unfulfilled horizon of human progress. The stories of these erased inventions are not merely isolated footnotes of eccentric dreamers or forgotten engineers. They sketch the distinct, undeniable outline of a reality that was deliberately kept out of our reach. Across decades, brilliant innovators have pierced the veil of the unknown, capturing brief glimpses of a world free from artificial limitations, only to watch their life's work confiscated, discredited, or utterly destroyed. Their systematic erasure speaks to a quiet, uncomfortable truth about the nature of our civilization. Sometimes, the forward march of humanity is constrained not by our sheer inability to discover the extraordinary, but by the fierce reluctance of entrenched systems to embrace that disruption. Breakthrough technologies that could have cured devastating illness, provided boundless clean energy, or fundamentally altered our relationship with gravity and distance currently exist in the shadows. They gather dust in classified vaults because they directly threaten an order built securely on economic scarcity, energy dependence, and controlled profit. These forgotten pioneers boldly remind us that the world we currently inhabit is not the absolute limit of what is scientifically possible. It is simply the carefully curated version of reality we have been permitted to experience. As we look back at the ashes of lost journals, the completely dismantled laboratories, and the silenced healing frequencies, we must confront the true, lasting cost of this suppression. The greatest tragedy is not the mere loss of the machines themselves. It is the profound, boundless human potential that was quietly and methodically extinguished. The revolutionary solutions to our most enduring challenges may already have been found, lingering forever just out of reach, waiting for a time when humanity is finally allowed to step beyond its self-imposed boundaries.